Okay, Marion, I'm going to mute. And Heather, feel free to take us away.
Great, you're making me go first. Wonderful.
Well, I can introduce you. This is Heather Pierini. She is the director, founder, and overall badass from Food is Free Bay Area. She saw a need in the community for food insecurity and where we were at during the pandemic. And luckily, during that time, we had a couple people that actually cared. So we actually had some resources to start getting food out into the community. And so she helped with that distribution effort. And since then, she has grown, the project has grown, and the money has shrunk. So I will let you take it from there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thanks, Julia. So I'm here from my living room, which is a wonderful place to be. Allows me to kind of have my weekend and also do some work at the same time. So Food is Free Bay Area started actually before the pandemic in my front yard, giving away some of the extra produce we grew in our backyard. We had installed a permaculture food forest with sustainable Solano in I believe it was 2017. And it always produced way too much food. And we would give it away on a little table in front of our yard. And during the pandemic, we saw that people were stopping and looking and hoping that there was food there. And so, like Julia said, we gathered uh, committed people within the community and said, it's not okay that people in our community are going hungry. Let's fix this. And it grew really, really quickly. And we tapped into government programs and we became partners with the food bank. And we found a site to bring in the giant truckloads of food that we were able to find. And so we have been operating out of the Solano County Fairgrounds now for 6 years. It's our 6 year anniversary in July. Um, and Right now, we're serving more than 5,000 households every month. So we started from this tiny little front yard table, and now with all of our food distributions throughout the county, we're serving 5,000 households a month and more. Some months are up to 6,000. And we provide direct food distribution. So we will give food out directly to the community. We rescue food. So that means we take food that would otherwise go to waste or end up towards the waste stream. And we get it all together. We make sure it looks good, and then we hand it out to people. We have our gleaning team who go and pick produce from people's backyards or pick up food from the farmers markets and bring that to get distributed to people. And we do all sorts of events throughout the entire county. So our setup is that um, we have vehicles, refrigerated vehicles, where we're able to take our food distributions on the road. And so we have food distributions every month in every city in Solano County. And we're starting to work some in Contra Costa County and Napa County. So we have this ability to kind of get food in, get food out, and really serve the community where they're at. And it's been a joy and a pain and a pleasure, all of the things that it could be. It's been amazing. So our largest food distributions are at the Solano County Fairgrounds in Vallejo every Tuesday and Thursday. We give out food between 3 and 6 p.m. We'll start early if we can, but we often have a line. For a while, we had a line starting around 9, 10, 11 in the morning for a 3 o'clock food distribution. And people would sit in their cars or sit under a tree on the fairgrounds waiting for us to get pulled together and set up. And when SNAP was paused in October and November of 2025, We went from having about maybe 20 to 25 new families per food distribution, which is a lot. I mean, to have an event on one day where you're serving 500 families or 400 families, and 25 of those families are brand new, have never gotten food assistance before with you, is a good number. We saw that number double and served 50, 60, 75 brand new families in one day at a time. And then when SNAP was reinstated, we saw a little drop in the volume of new families coming into our food distributions. Now, throughout this entire time, we're seeing that the big, beautiful bill, so HR1, has been voted in and implemented. We're seeing that there are increased attacks on the immigrant community. We're seeing more and more ICE activity and these sorts of things, all of which impact the population of people most likely to experience food insecurity. Um, we're seeing that fuel prices are rising. Everyone saw their groceries rise. You're still seeing it, I'm sure. Everyone is seeing all of the expenses that go along with having a household rise over the last, I mean, long time, but at least in the last year, we've noticed significant increase. Now, add to that the impact of HR1, where it's limiting the amount of people who can access SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition and Aid programs, where it is limiting the amount of food that can be purchased with SNAP in some states. So things like a birthday cake or a rotisserie chicken are not allowable in some states anymore because um, those states have chosen to restrict SNAP to only ingredients instead of something that can ease a family's dinner time woes. So we're seeing these attacks on our food security system, and we're seeing increased pressure on the community. And last Thursday at our food distribution was what, 2 days ago? We had 50 brand new families come in one day. And I was surprised during the distribution. I was signing people in, I was explaining kind of what was happening and how the program worked and that sort of stuff. So they felt comfortable and able to access the food program. But as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, man, this is more new people than I usually see. And and then I looked at the date. It's almost 30 days from when the newest requirement for HR1, where families who do not have young dependents have to be working, going to school, or volunteering 80 hours a week to receive SNAP. And so it made sense then in my head. Oh, okay, they hit a limit or they got recertified and they couldn't meet the requirements anymore. So that made sense then that we started seeing this uptick already. I'm expecting more and more of an uptick. I'm expecting to see more and more new families, more of our families that have depended on us over the years that might have been doing okay and not had to come to get food for a while. I'm expecting to see more of them coming back. Um, so some of the things that I wanted to point out. So I said that the average number of new households before October of 2025 was 25 households per day distribution. During the shutdown, the SNAP shutdown, it popped up to 55 to 60 per day in October and November of 2025, and it went right back down. Now, 50 plus households every day that were open at the Solano County Fairgrounds are brand new. And Thursday, we served 570 some odd families. So we're saying about almost 10% of those families were brand new. That's a really high percentage of brand new. So during the distribution, I typically talk with our clients as they come through. That's one of the things that I love most about my job is being able to talk with community and let them know how welcome they are and how glad we are to see them and that I am so proud of them for taking that step and being brave to come out somewhere they might never have been, come out to the fairgrounds, wait in line, and trust us to serve them in this way. And so we talk. And one of our clients, he told me, it's just not worth it to renew my SNAP benefits. It's not worth it to keep getting the food stamps because they're asking so much now and nobody will call me back. And it's so hard to get everything in that I'd rather come here than jump through those hoops. So that was one man who's come to us before and that I've now been seeing very frequently. And then I had another family come through where they were talking about how they were really surprised because this month their SNAP benefits went from like $300 to 26. And they were very, very surprised because why did it go down? We didn't do anything different. We didn't change anything. And until they can figure that out, they still only have $26 to spend on those groceries to help support their family. So that's another reason why people are coming out. In general, we know the grocery costs, the fuel costs, the utility cost, the general cost of living is so extraordinarily high. And so I look at this from the food security point of view. We can also look at it from the point of view of what all does it take to maintain a household? Like, what else are people skipping? What else is happening that um, the impacts of this bill, HR 1, what else is happening that is going to impact our society for years and years and years? I mean, generations at a certain point. I grew up food insecure. I know what it's like to be a kid going without. And that's part of what informs my choices as an adult to do the work that I do. It also, all of these things can have changes generations and generations down the road. So, how I raise my kids, how how my parents raised me, how people who were born and grew up during the Depression, how they raised their kids, all of these pieces lead to our kind of cultural identity around not having enough, around how do we come together as a community. And so I feel like this is one of those times when we need to look at, okay, so our government isn't going to be doing these safety net services. How do we as a community come together to help provide those community safety nets? How do we as a community make sure that people feel comfortable coming to get services where they're offered and where they're available and open to anyone? I hear often, what do I need to do to get food? And I said, you've already done it. You've gotten here and you're human. These are the only requirements I have. Anything else is a bonus, and all it is for data tracking. You can give me your first name, your zip code, and how many people. Other than that, I'm not going to ask you anything else. And if you don't want to give me those things, I'm still going to give you food because you're here and you're human. That's all it takes. So I guess my main point would be let's think about how we can, as a community, work to kind of meet the needs of people around us, how we can um, work. I mean, number one, we have to work to change we have to work to change the policies that are impacting these people most at risk. And we have to recognize that we're all at risk. We're all just one bad month away from being in a situation of needing assistance. Um, by far, I mean, by and away, the American public are what, 2 months away, one big emergency away from one big
One missed
emergency
paycheck
away from
usually.
not being able to pay their bills. And and I really feel like we as a society need to look at this community care piece and how to implement more community care. So that's what my points are for this lovely afternoon. And I'd love to hear questions, comments, anything you guys want to ask about any of our programs. I can detail more about what we do. We do have a senior program. We have a diaper program. We partnered with Seroptimist and Vallejo to provide pads and tampons and wipes. All sorts of fun stuff going on.
Well, so there's two angles to this because, and both are equally important, is like there's the accessing the services, and
Mhm.
then there's also advocating and helping on the other end of it in trying to provide those services. And we have questions for both.
Great.
So, what do you see as the biggest challenge to getting food into the community?
The biggest challenge to getting food into the community is truthfully staff time. It's funding. Everything boils down to money. Um, I have more than enough food that I can have, that I can access to feed anyone who's needing it. I can bring in more food very easily. I cannot, however, pay drivers to pick that food up, pay drivers to weigh that food because number one, it doesn't count unless you keep track of it. Everything has to be kept track of. Everything requires some sort of data management. So, keeping those vehicles on the road safely maintained. I don't want my vehicle's tire to blow out and cause someone to get into a wreck, possibly impact someone's life in that way. How horrible would that be? So, all of our vehicles need maintained. Fuel costs. When diesel went to $8 a gallon, that hurt. Oh my goodness, that hurt really badly. Um, we also have an electric vehicle. That one's in the shop right now because that also has separate challenges. So we're looking at solving problems in multiple ways, obviously, right? But getting more food out to the community requires us storing the food safely in refrigerated containers, making sure that that food then gets moved out to the community where our volunteer team kicks in. But I can't ask volunteers to do the really, really difficult physical labor of picking up the large volumes of food that we pick up. Right now, just to maintain the services that we do right now for 5,000 households every month, we're picking up more than 50,000 pounds of food monthly from grocery stores, manufacturers, and food rescue from other places, so gleaning and that sort of thing. That does not count the food that we get in from federal programming like the USDA TFAP program, the Emergency Food Aid Program, the Senior Food Box Program. That is probably another 100 to 120,000 pounds of food every month. So we're quite literally moving massive, massive tonnage of food every month. Um, and that requires that staff infrastructure. And grants want to pay for new programs. Grants want to pay for a new truck or something like that, something pretty, something fun. They don't want to pay for staff costs. One of the biggest reasons why we have so much of this food coming in is through the grocery recovery program. So in California, we have a law called SB 1383 that requires grocery stores and food manufacturers and large-scale food programming to get all food that is good for humans to programs that will feed people. It's amazing, right? It's an unbelievable program, brings in so much food. All of that food that gets overstocked at the grocery store or that is close to its best by date or that the packages got crushed or something. All of that food can go feed people. I love that. It warms my heart and there's no funding for it. It is a state mandate. It is a state law and there is zero funding for it. It is the only recycling stream because it is typically, I mean, it would be called a recycling stream in my mind. It is the only type of recycling or product recovery that doesn't have a funding stream. If you collect metal cans, you can get money for it. If you collect glass bottles, you can get money for it. If you bring in cardboard bales, if you bring in pallets, all of these things, there's a funding stream associated with it that recognizes there has to be an infrastructure that runs that recycling network. There has to be a place to aggregate it. There has to be a place to sort it. There has to be a system for the waste generated by it. And if we're looking at this as a community care piece, I want to feed the community this food. Yes, I love that we're doing this, but I also want to pay living wages to my staff. And I want my staff to know they have a stable job that has benefits, that has growth potential, that is something that they can see doing for many years because it meets their personal goals, their professional goals, and their community goals. So to me, the idea that this recycling stream isn't funded is absurd. But it's also that, yes, we're super grateful that the food is coming in, but acknowledging the work and the labor um, for organizations that are smaller than mine, like small churches that are often who do food, those who do food programming. So you'll often hear that there's a small church or a church that has a food distribution on a certain day of the month or a day of the week. Those programs are very much run by volunteers. And who are the largest group of volunteers in America? Older adults. Um, and is it equitable, fair, reasonable, compassionate to expect that an entire recycling stream be basically held up by the unpaid labor of our older adult population? That makes no sense to me. And so I really feel like that's one of the areas that, while California was first in the nation to create this law around um, getting food out to the community, there has to be a better thought out implementation piece. Um, I really, whether it's some sort of cap and trade, whether it is like there has to be a funding mechanism built into this. Because we have reached our limitations. We have reached the amount that we can do, probably exceeded it because I always think that we're going to bring in more donations. Um, we have reached the level that we can manage with what infrastructure we have. Um, and my team works amazingly hard, and our volunteer team works amazingly hard. Just an unbelievable amount of food gets sorted. We have a waste process for making sure that we do it right. Because if we're going to set it up, I'm going to set it up so that we're doing it right. All of the food that's no longer good for humans, we offer to animal feed. So ranches, people who own goats, people who own rabbits or chickens, that sort of thing. They're free to come pick up buckets of food at the end of our food distribution. All of the food that's no longer good for people gets taken out of its packaging, put into buckets. Those buckets either go to animals or they go to our green bin. The packaging is then sorted, plastics and papers. Plastics get put in the trash and the papers get put in the recycling. And so by the end of it, we're looking at less than 10% of the weight of the food that we bring in actually ending up in the waste stream, which is extraordinary. And I'm very proud of our team for being able to implement this, but it also shows that there's this huge labor input that, I mean, we very much benefit from our volunteers who do a big portion of that labor. So that's my that's the biggest challenge with getting food out to the community is the funding piece, making sure that those processes happen.
So
Um,
getting
yeah,
access to the food isn't the
no,
isn't the part. It's
nope.
all the logistics and everything else around it because
It's
that
all the
is not paid
logistics and
for.
everything around it, yes. And it's the fact that we don't have a warehouse or a facility. We have shipping container refrigerators that have to be accessed by pallet jacks and ramps. We're doing this, I mean, we are quite literally running this program out of a parking lot. And one of our main visions for Food is Free in the future is that we will be building uh, basically not a complex, but it's kind of a community building, something that has a food warehouse, something that has distribution space, and something that also has nonprofit space for other organizations. So that's one of our big ideas.
And as for staff, on average, or for paid staff, like how many paid staff are there on average? How many volunteers are you getting per week,
Mhm.
etc.?
So we have about 20 to 25 volunteers who come out every Tuesday and Thursday. They don't all stay the entire time that we're doing food distribution at the fairgrounds. That's our biggest volunteer site, our biggest food site, our biggest volunteer site. The other sites, like the site we do at Heritage Presbyterian Church in Benicia, will typically have between 5 and 10 volunteers. Um, and some of the smaller distributions at the senior centers will have around 5 volunteers, sometimes a bit less. At each distribution, I require that we have at least 2 staff because I feel it's too much to lean on the volunteers to have them have to do staff tasks. So we have one staff who can be driving and unloading, and one staff who can be helping the volunteers, who can be doing sign in and that sort of thing. So in gen in total, Food is Free has 8 staff. No one is full time. We have 8 very part-time staff. Um, and those staff, I mean, we have to have 4 to 5 on at the fairgrounds in Vallejo on Tuesday, Thursday. But we have one staff member who most of what he does is the food rescue and recovery. He does grocery recovery routes throughout Solano and Contra Costa counties. We have one route that's all the way through La Miranda, and that brings in typically about 6 to 7,000 pounds each week. Um, and so it's just an extraordinary amount of food comes in. And knowing that this food comes from the grocery stores and is loaded box by box into our vans, it's loaded crate by crate. If we're lucky, they have it palletized and can put it right in there on the pallet. Um, so that's something. So 8 staff, including me, and no one is paid more than I'm trying to think. No one is paid more than 30 hours a week right now. We've got 30 hours as the highest amount that we've got right now. And that's for our operations manager, Alma, who is overseeing all the other staff and being the on-site person doing all the operations at the fairgrounds. As I've stepped back a little bit and I'm doing all of the fundraising and outreach and everything. I'm still there all the time, but Alma is the one doing the operations in charge. Gian's all like, "Yeah, good job, Heather." She saw the beginning. Um, so I we have the work to be able to have 10 full-time staff, no doubt.
It's the funding.
It's funding.
Speaking of which, is there advocacy being done to fund that portion of the that bill?
Yes,
Uh,
so SB 1383, I'm part of a coalition of, we're called food rescue organizations. So I'm part of a coalition of food rescue organizations throughout the entire state. And we have a lobbyist working to help make change. And we have created our talking points. I mean, this is all within the last few years that this has been developed. And there are several larger organizations, like some you might have heard of, that are fairly local. White Pony Express in Contra Costa County, um, Extra Food in Marin County. What is it? The Food Runners. Those type of organizations. They're based on food rescue. and they don't do some of the pieces that we do. So Solano County is a very interesting county in that we are very low in philanthropic giving and very high in community need. And so those two pieces, that gap means that most of the nonprofits working in our space have to do double duty. And I think that's one of the reasons why Food is Free developed as it did to be doing food distribution and this big piece of food recovery. So the Coalition of Food Rescue Organizations is working to talk with the state, talk with Cal Recycle, and figure out ways that food rescue can be funded. And there's advocacy going on through all the what is it, California Association of Food Banks, CAFF, for the same thing. And then there's national advocacy through Feeding America. And so there are different levels of food banking. It's very interesting. So the national level is typically food banks that are partnered with Feeding America. And then there's the regional levels. The Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano is one of the larger food banks in Northern California, and they are the emergency response food bank for all of Northern California. And then there are partner agencies within a food bank, and Food is Free is one of the partner agencies with Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano. Um, Turns out we are the largest partner agency within both Solano and Contra Costa County in the number of people that we serve. So that's a pretty significant number. We serve more than Loaves and Fishes. We serve more than Monument Crisis Center. We serve more than any other organization in either county. Um, so it kind of just gives you an idea of the reach that we do. Um, Other advocacy steps, a lot of it is just making sure people know about it. And we know about getting our organic waste now into the green bin. There's been the push that homes should be putting their organic waste into the green bin, and that stores should be donating the organic waste, all of those sorts of things, because that organic waste in the landfill is a huge source of methane. And methane is a very potent greenhouse gas, much more potent than carbon dioxide. So we have the science behind it. We have all of those pieces of the puzzle. Um, Now we just need to find that funding piece to help fund the operations and infrastructure that are needed.
So going to the other side of it, accessing help. So you kind of talked about you don't need information, but what what do people need to access help? Um, so obviously they need to get themselves to a distribution site.
Mhm. So throughout
Uh,
Solano County, there are many, many partners with the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano, and each partner has a different program, and each program has different requirements. So the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano has one global tool called Find Food Near Me. And on the food bank website, you can type in your address, click that, and it will tell you where the closest food distributions are to you, and hopefully tell you what those requirements are to access food at that food distribution. Um, some of them require you can only come once a month. Some say you have to have an ID. Some say you have to be a certain age, that they're only for seniors or something like that. And some have prepackaged boxes. So you have the choice to in my head, I always call it the like it or lump it box. Um, and thank you, Julia. Yes, the Fine Food by me. It's Fine Food in my city. Um, and then there are places where you can go and you don't have to have any requirements except just showing up and obviously waiting in the line. And we ask for very minimal information. We ask for a first name because we don't need to know last names. I don't track any of this. All of this is just put on a sheet. We add up the number and it's all good. I need to know county level location. So if you're standing in my county, what that means to me is that, all right, you're here. You exist within this space. We do ask zip codes because we try and sort through and figure out more, uh, where can we try and push for more resources? Where is there this need happening? And then we ask for the number of individuals. And bonus information that I'll ask for sometimes, we have a summer program at the Benicia Library. We ask for how many kids are in the house because when I found out that the Benicia School District didn't do a summer food program, I was incensed. I was actually furious because why? Why not? These kids get free and reduced lunch at school and free and reduced breakfast at school. How do they not need it June, July, and August? And so we put together this summer food program at the Benicia Library, and we do it in the evening after parents might be off from work. Um, and we really try and bring in things that kids might like. So if we find granola bars or if we can find peanut butter, make sure that we've always got a lot of bread, that sort of thing. Um, we do ask the number of kids, and then because we last year we got for the first time funding from the Area Agency on Aging, we're asking how many older adults are in the house. And that really gives us this bigger picture of who are the people coming through here. Uh, and I have to say, most of the people who come through our food distributions, there's older adults in the house, there's children in the house, there are disabled people in the house, and that they take their valuable time, that they spend that time, just as if you're spending money, you spend time, that you spend the fuel necessary to get there, and then that you spend the physical energy to stand in line. And that to me that's a lot to ask. So how long does it take to wait in line at Food is Free? I wish I could say not very long, but um, Thursday, the diaper line took 45 minutes to get through from when you started in line to when you got the diapers. It took 45 minutes because there were so many families in need of the diaper program. The food line, it took between 30 to 60 minutes to stand through the line um, on Thursday. And it's hot, and we're out at the fairgrounds, so everything is asphalt. There's not that much shade. I only have 6 shade tents, so I put them where we can to make sure people are somewhat shaded. Um, I have volunteers take a break and bring waters out to people, but how many cases of water can I afford to buy per day to give out? And and these are people who are coming on walkers. These are people coming in wheelchairs. These are people coming carrying their babies and holding their kids' hands. Some who speak English and some who don't. Um, we see the full spectrum of humanity. I see people coming in business clothes. I see people driving nice cars. I see people walking. I've seen people come up on electric wheelchairs, driving through the fairgrounds on an electric wheelchair to try and get to the food distribution. People come on bikes. People come on foot. They come with their animals. And to every new person, the first thing I try and tell them is as soon as they look at me with the scared look in their eyes and they come up and they're like pulling their ID out, and I'm like, don't need any of that. I'm really glad you made it. I'm Heather. This is the information I need. And it it is so hard to see our community in pain like that because I mean, think about it. What would it take? What would it take to be in a position where that was the best option. And I know what it takes because I was there as a kid. I was there as a young adult with a as a single mom. Um, and when people ask me, how do you know someone's not getting the food to sell it? How do you know someone's not abusing the system? How do you know they really need it? And the first thing in my mind is, well, I don't see you standing out in line there. Would you? Um, I know they need it because they're there. And no one is going and putting themselves in that situation on purpose because that sounds like a lot of fun. No one says, you know what? I want to spend 2 hours of my Tuesday afternoon standing in line with two of my kids or three of my kids and my grandma waiting to get food.
True. So, how are you able to reach people who are housebound?
That sucks. We had money at one point from the city of Vacaville that was allowing us to do home deliveries in Vacaville. We do not have enough money to do home deliveries. We have worked on trying to create volunteer programs where volunteers can take food to homebound people. We get a lot of phone calls. And when those phone calls come in, typically what happens is I try and find a volunteer or one of our staff who live nearby and can pick food up at the distribution and drop it off for them. But that's usually just a one-off. And what we try and do is get them the contact information for Meals on Wheels, the contact information for St. Vincent de Paul here in Venetia, or in one of the areas that has a home delivery program, because um, we just don't have enough. And it's heartbreaking because the stories we hear are things like a social worker calling saying, oh, I have this client who's coming out of the hospital and he just had a stroke and he doesn't have anyone to care for him at home and he needs food that's already ready to eat and heat up in a microwave. And can you guys drop some stuff off? He's home now. And what do you do with that? Like, as a human being, what do you do when you hear that information and you're holding it in your head and you're holding it in your heart and you're thinking, okay, our system is completely broken, number one, and we will make it happen. So we have done things like order Instacart delivery to people's houses. We have I have called people personally to find volunteers to drive out there. I have driven out to people's houses. I have gone and bought food and driven it to someone's house. Um,
Just doesn't
and
sound, it's
yeah,
just not sustainable though.
it's not sustainable. So I have talked with the city of Vallejo. They have interest in creating a program to home deliver to seniors and disabled people. Um, I mean, I won't know if they get the funding yet. I'm hopeful because we would love to.
Yeah.
I would put someone on that 40 hours a week and that be all they do if I could.
So for people who don't have access to kitchens,
Mhm.
do you have food available that is
Yes.
ready to eat?
Yep. So we have, we call it the secret stash. We have a pallet of food that we purchased this on purpose to make sure we have food that can be eaten immediately, that can be prepared without cooking, without kitchen. When someone calls and asks for an immediate assistance or an emergency assistance, we do have questions we go through, like, do you have a refrigerator? Do you have a microwave? Do you have access to a stove? All of these pieces, because that lets us know what kinds of food and what needs they have. Um, One time I had I had several people from a local encampment come through, and they'd gone through the line. And it was right at the very, very end. So we were kind of running out of certain things and that sort of stuff. And I was thinking to myself, I think they need something more. And so I was still signing people in because truthfully, the line never stops. Um, and I had one of my staff, I said, go ask and say, hey, we have some of this other stuff. Would this be helpful for you? And and they were like, yeah, yeah, totally. And so the staff person went and got some more of the other stuff. And as we were cleaning up that night, I turn around and I look, and over on the grassy area, um, they had set themselves up and they were shoveling the food into their mouths. And it let me know that it wasn't just a need for food, a nebulous future need for food, like I need something for dinner, but it's I need food now kind of need that brought them there. And so yeah, we will always have that. And if we don't, we have actually emergency grocery cards that I will give people, and that will take them to Safeway or another grocery store, and they can buy what they need there.
Okay, and then let me go back to my questions before I listen. Okay. Do you ever refer people to you can't help to the Aged and Disabled Resource Center?
Hmm. Yes.
Okay.
We get a lot of referral calls from ADRC. They call us and say, "Do you have the ability to get food out to this person? Because they're in need of that right now." But yes, the ADRC is one of our, we have an information sheet that we want to make sure, especially older adults have. And we have a senior box program. So this is a federal program that's called the Commodity Senior Food Program. And it has an application, it has an income requirement, and it has a residency requirement. So it has more requirements than our basic food program. Anybody gets food, but this extra program has requirements that you have to meet, that there has to be this application piece. But it's a 30-pound box of extra shelf-stable foods plus 2 pounds of commodity cheese, which was the cheese of my childhood. So I have fond memories of grilled cheese sandwiches with that. And that senior program, we've now passed over 200 seniors signed up on that program now. And we work very hard to make sure that we have a text message notification program to let them know the dates that they can come to pick up their next boxes. We're trying to make things as easy as possible. We set up a proxy program so that other people can pick up for older adults if they're disabled or not able to come out to the site. Um, just try as hard as we can to solve as many of those barriers as we can.
Um, Meals on Wheels does home deliveries. What gap in their service do you feel needs addressing?
There's a 6-week wait period um, from when you call to when you get assigned on Meals on Wheels typically. And if you have certain nutritional limitations, it's a little harder. And one thing that I am very, very passionate about. I mean, obviously, you guys are hearing that I'm passionate about food. Um, one thing I'm very passionate about is choice. And when someone else makes something for you and gives you a packet that this is what you have, and taking away that choice, what's for dinner? My family makes a meal plan every week, but some days I don't feel like making what we had put on there. I don't feel like doing it. And having that privilege of choice is incredible. And so that's one of the pieces that I feel like might, um, if it's not your cultural heritage, if it is not the foods that you're used to eating, if you might not be allergic to it, but it upsets your stomach. I mean, these types of things are what we see and why I feel that choice is should be paramount in any food programming. And Meals on Wheels solves a massive problem, but it can't be the be all and end all. There have to be other pieces put in place, in my opinion. And yeah, so
Okay, well, we are coming up on our less than 10-minute mark. So
woohoo!
I am going to put a couple links into the chat because we have your website. There was also a question about the Gleaning Project, and that information is also on there.
That
And
one's run by a young teenage volunteer. It's all absolutely amazing.
I love that. And then looking at the distribution sites, I grabbed your latest flyer off your Facebook because
Thank
I
you.
like to do stuff like that.
And
And
our website is being updated right now, so it will come out with a brand new look here soon.
well, I do appreciate that. But the last question that we always like to ask is, what can we do? How can we be
Mhm,
more helpful to dealing with food insecurity, to helping specifically Food is Free Bay Area, but
mhm.
all, kind of more the
Yeah.
global aspect of it as well?
The global aspect about food insecurity. Number one, I mean, it's the point that food is a basic human right. We all have to have food to live multiple times a day, every day of the week, every week of the year. And that setting up barriers to access that make it harder for people who have needs to access is, I love seeing them in the background. That's great. Setting up barriers to access is something that we can all work to eliminate, right? Making sure that food programming is one of the pieces that our government funds, right? Whether it's at the state level, the local level, the federal level, like really advocating for those pieces. The Farm Bill is a big one. The amount of money that is allocated to food banks in the state budget, whether that money is any of it is allocated for food banks to purchase from local farmers. I mean, the food system is vast. The way that food moves from fields to our tables is incredibly complex. And how and where we invest and where we put our governmental money influences that system. And it influences, I mean, just in amazing ways. For every dollar that is spent in SNAP money, so every dollar of food stamps that are spent, like $1.50 comes back to the community, is reinvested in the community. People spend their SNAP where they live. The grocery stores that they live near is where they spend that SNAP money. Um, the largest sources of fraud in the SNAP system are criminals who steal SNAP benefits. They are not people who are actually the recipients. It's people who are scamming the system to skim their cards of food stamp money before the family ever receives it. Um, I think 30% of the SNAP recipients are children, 20% are older adults, and 10% are disabled. So you have more than half already that are within populations that, uh, in my opinion, we should all make sure we take care of every single day of the year. Um, So that means that you've got 40% of the population that don't have a physical disability. They might have mental issues, they might have behavioral health issues. Like all of these pieces can be playing into the um into the equation. They could be caregivers for the 60% of the people that are also on SNAP. So um advocate, vote, vote for people who are, I mean, when something comes up in the news about food programming, about cuts to SNAP, that sort of thing, our representatives need to know where we stand, which is why it's valuable for me as a nonprofit to join those other organizations like the Food Rescue Coalition, like the Association of Food Banks, and that sort of thing, because together our voices sound louder. Um, Donate if you can. Make sure people in your circle know about the resources that are available. Make sure people in your circle know that they can access food, that they can come and volunteer. They can come volunteer and access food in the same day. Like those things can exist on the same space. We love that our volunteers to often come from our client base. We love that our volunteers come and spend some time helping us and also say, my family is still in need of food. They sign in, they get their food, and they're still volunteering. And I think it just really takes away some of the power imbalance. It makes it to where there's not just the people behind the table and the people in front of the table, but we are all part of this community.
You know, one of the times that I volunteered, uh, one of the people that was volunteering, she got a bag of fruit and she was like, "It's so nice because I never actually get fruit for myself.
Mhm.
I only ever get it for my kids."
Yes.
And so there are different levels of food insecurity.
Mhm.
And just because you're not, without a home or you unable to work or anything like that doesn't mean that it's not food insecure. It
Mhm.
just means it's a little bit more secure than somebody else, but that's
Yeah.
not saying that you're food secure.
Yes. Nutritional insecurity is a thing. Um, there's a rise in nutritional deficiencies in certain populations right now, especially older adults. Um, there's a lot we could talk about. I
I know.
have,
We could
there's
have another three
so
hours of a
much.
conversation, but
And yeah.
I do want to say, so the donate link is on the webs on your main website, so
Mhm.
feel free to get that and
Yes.
spread it around. The distribution is there. That is pretty typical for a week
Mhm.
distribution. And then there's also the stuff that you need for the new site. Again, we
Yes.
were talking about it
Oh
is
yeah, we are
expensive to
moving.
move. So it is a fully new site. So anybody who has volunteered or gotten food from Food is Free at the Vallejo Camp Fairground site does need to check the maps because it is
It will
different.
be changed. We're going to be putting up signs. I have a 12-foot tall feather flag that says food that I'm going to be putting up. So hopefully that will help people find us. We're pretty active on social media, trying to make sure people know kind of what's happening. Um, yeah, so I we would love to have any of y'all come out and that sort of thing. It's very fun.
It is actually it's very fun. Unfortunately, my children can't go with me.
No,
But
no, we don't do little kids right now.
but I do want to
Irina,
say it is probably one of the most fulfilling things to do. Rita, I know you're gonna chime in on this, so come on.
No, I was just going to go back to the funding, and I keep hearing Solano County, we're so bad about donations to nonprofits. We're one of the worst counties. And we now have the community foundation. Is that something that you've looked at in terms of utilizing them? I know they've got some kind of requirements too that make it kind of onerous, I think. But I don't know if that's something you've looked at.
we have applied for Solano Community Foundation funding before, and there's not really an open grant type of funding from them right now that aligns with food insecurity. We've applied. The recent grants that I've applied for are through all of the different grocery stores. They do a yearly give usually through the Bay Area Air Quality Management District's funding that was related to the Valero refinery the fines that Valero needed to pay because a lot of our work is related to air quality.
Mhm.
Um, by getting that organic waste into the
Yeah.
proper streams versus the landfill. I've applied for, we just received the county community investment fund grant, which is $75,000 over a year.
Mm.
$75,000 is 2 months of our operating expenses.
Mm.
So that's wonderful
Uh,
that we got that. It's amazing. But
yeah,
that our county basically has that level be what they invest in, I guess, three or four different nonprofits. It's not enough for a county with 500,000 population.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking in terms of Community Foundation being one of their partners for their giving when they do their uh, shout out for donations that they do, I think twice a year, once in November and once in June again.
Yeah,
But
we're
it'd
doing
be
Live Solano, Give Solano this year. So that's
okay,
the annual giving campaign. We'll be part of that. Last year was the
okay.
first one, and we did that. We do lots of fundraisers. We do lots of direct asks for money. I call the, like, I'm working on creating relationships with the food manufacturers so that if they don't have a donation program where they're getting their food into the community, we can help them with that. And
Hmm.
then as a reward for helping them with their compliance with the state law, maybe they would be able to donate to our organization as well. Um, because there aren't fines associated with it yet. So there's not really a great, there might be at some point, but I don't know that those fines will then go into creating the infrastructure needed to create the system.
And just out of curiosity, how much are you getting from the AAA?
From Area Agency on Aging this year, we
Yeah.
got $104,000.
Oh, great.
So that is funding our senior program, which makes it to
Good.
where we have a food distribution at all of the interested senior centers throughout the county.
Hmm.
So we offered it to every senior center. And Rio Vista, Benicia, Florence Douglas, and Joseph Nelson took us up on it. And so we have those monthly. And then we have our senior food box program, which allows us to distribute those food boxes every 2 weeks out of the month. We do those. And then it helps support the food distribution in general because over 35% of our population are seniors, are older adults. And it's just that was a huge boost for us to be able to have that funding come in. And then the city of Benicia had some community funding that they put in. We got 2 years of that. So last year, and then this is the new fiscal year. And that's allowing us to do the Benicia programming at the library, the senior center, not the senior center, the library and Heritage Presbyterian Church. So those are the Benicia ones, and that helps fund the summer program for Benicia as well.
Sorry, Julia.
Oh no,
I could
I
ask
love
a lot of
it.
questions too.
I
I'm
know.
going to talk. I live in Vacaville. I'm really disappointed that McBride didn't participate. There's a lot of things they don't participate in for some reason. So
Yeah, they have the
kind of,
congregate meals now, so all of the senior
yeah,
centers
they do
have the
have that.
congregate meals, and we do
Yeah.
the one of the ways that I thought of that we can raise money or bring in revenue as a nonprofit is using our cold chain infrastructure. So the refrigerated vans and our refrigerated containers. Other groups need food moved, right? In a safe way. So we offered that service to other organizations. And so we receive the congregate meals at our site at the fairgrounds in Vallejo, and then our drivers in our vans are the ones who deliver them to all of the
Mm,
senior centers throughout the county. So we're not doing that program. That's not our program. But what that does is that basically pays for our lease of the electric van, which is owned by Innovative Health Solutions, who has
mm,
the congregate meal program. So it gives us an extra vehicle to do the programming that we do.
mm.
And then we do outside distributions. We call them the parket markets. We'll set up a mini mobile farmers market on site somewhere for a fee. And organizations like healthcare companies can hire us if they want to bring in people to get information about vaccines, hire us to do this community outreach. We publicize it. We bring our setup. It's got checkered tablecloths and baskets, and we provide this produce for the community. And so we do that with several different healthcare companies in the area. And then that brings in some revenue. That revenue then supports all of the other programming and that sort of thing. So thinking of things as a business, thinking of this nonprofit as not just a how can we get grants, but also how can we bring in revenue? How can we provide jobs? How can we hire people who might have barriers to employment? How can we figure out ways to make these things happen um, how can it all work as an ecosystem together, you know? I'm
And
Phenomenal.
still going to have a worm farm someday. I'm going to have a worm farm from all of our organic waste, and then we're going to sell the worm castings and the worm tea and have it be a full like youth business development piece. I think that would be so much fun.
okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming out today, Heather, virtually though it is. We really appreciate it, and I will send you the link to this when we put it up, and the link to any clips I get out of it. So,
Thank you so much, Julia. And it's great to see those of you that I know. I really appreciate you spending your time here learning a little bit about kind of what food insecurity is looking like in Solano County and how, especially, it looks on the ground out here at Food is Free. Follow us on social media if you're not on already. If you go on Facebook or Instagram, we put up pictures and videos and all sorts of fun stuff.
Thank you.
sounds good.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
all
Thank
hard
you,
so
work.
much.
everybody. Have
Have
a
a
good
great,
rest
Bye,
of the weekend.
Heather. Thank
thank
you.
you. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.